This video is to cover the Mid-Unit 3 study guide in order to hopefully achieve success on our test. Our first problem says, on a winter morning, the temperature before sunrise was negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature then rose by 1/4 degree each hour for 5 hours before dropping 1 1/2 degrees each hour for 2 hours. What was the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit after 7 hours? So we need to list out the important information. We started at negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit, then we rose 1/4 degree every hour for 5 hours, and then dropped 1 1/2 degree every hour for 2 hours. So we can list this information out. We started at negative 15 degrees, we then rose 1/4 degree for 5 hours, and then we dropped 1 1/2 degree for 2 hours. If we carry out that multiplication, then 1/4 times 5 would be 1 1/4. So we increased a total of 1 1/4. We decreased 1 1/2 for 2 hours, so that's a decrease of 3. And now we're going to carry out the changes. Negative 15 plus 1 1/4 is negative 13 3/4. And then we're going to subtract 3 from that, getting negative 16 3/4. So A would be our answer here. Our next problem says that we're going to decide whether each expression simplifies to a number less than -1, greater than 1, or neither. We want to write each expression under the appropriate column, and you may not use every expression. That's important. Don't try to make something out of what's not there. It must be less than -1 to go here, and greater than 1 to go here. For me personally, I give these an A, B, C, D, and E option to fill into the chart. 3 divided by -4 is going to be negative 0.75. For B, 7 divided by 2 is going to be 3.5, and then we make it negative. C should be, according to your study guide, negative 8/3 times negative 3/5. So when we look at this, it's negative 8/3 times negative 3/5. Your 3's would cancel, and then you're left with 8/5. It's going to be positive because the two negatives make a positive. And D, that again should say negative 2 times 7/2 according to your study guide. So negative 2, which is negative 2/1, times 7/2. Your 2's would cancel, and then you're left with negative 7. For E, that is negative 10 divided by negative 6. Two negatives are going to give you a positive here. And then 10 divided by 6 is 1 2/3. So you have positive 1 2/3 here. Now that you know what all of the values are, you're going to sort them less than -1 or greater than positive 1. A is going to be, so again, we're now going to sort these numbers according to less than -1 and greater than 1. Negative 0.75 is closer to 0 than -1, therefore it is not less than -1. It's also not greater than positive 1, so this would be a neither option. Negative 3.5, which we said was B, would be less than -1. For C, our negative 8/3 times negative 3/5, that would give us 1 3/5, which is greater than 1. For D, we have negative 7, which is less than -1. And our E option that we came up with is 1 2/3, which is greater than 1. So we have one option that was neither, and the other 4 fit into our chart. Our next problem says a proportional relationship is represented by the equation 9x equals 12y. If y equals kx, where k is the constant of proportionality, what is the value of k? So we're given an equation here, 9x equals 12y. And we're given a format to fit in order to identify k. That is y equals kx. As you look at these two, you should see what's similar and what's different about them. They both contain the variables y and x, but on one equation, the y is on the right side, and the other, the y is on the left side. So we can actually reverse the order of our equation, making it 12y equals 9x. We also should notice that y needs to be alone. It needs to be all by itself in order to identify what the k value is. And the way that we would get this y value alone would be to divide our 12 away, since 12 and y are being multiplied. And if you divide on one side, you need to divide on the other side of the equation as well. Now our 12's cancel out, equaling 1. We're left with y equals 9/12 k, but 9/12 can reduce by 3. So 9 divided by 3 gives us 3. And 12 divided by 3 gives us 4. So that is y equals 3/4 x, in which we are now looking at y equals kx, where 3/4 is our k value. So the correct answer here is D. We want to use the following scenario for the next set of problems. We're talking about taking a road trip. On a road trip, Lindy drove at a speed of 40 miles per hour for the first 2 hours. She then increased her speed by 5%. So we want to know, how fast was Lindy driving after she increased her speed? Well, originally we were traveling 40 miles per hour, and then we increased our speed by 5%. So 5% of 40 is how much we increased our speed by. And 5% of 40 is 2. So we are now traveling 42 miles per hour. Suppose that Lindy continues to drive at her increased speed. Write an equation to find the additional distance, d, in miles that Lindy will travel if she travels at that speed for X hours. So we are talking about Lindy's increased speed, so the 42 miles per hour, and we want to write an equation to find the additional distance if she travels that for X hours. Well, if we just want to know that portion, then distance would be her miles per hour times the amount of time that she drove that. This would only cover the additional distance. This is all that you need to come up with, but we could figure out her total distance by saying that her distance would be 40 miles per hour for 2 hours plus the additional 42 miles per hour for X hours. That would give us her total distance. Either of these would be acceptable equations here. And in the last section, it says, suppose that Lindy had started out driving at the increased speed of, suppose that Lindy had started out driving at the increased speed instead of at 40 miles per hour. How far would she have traveled after driving 5 hours at this higher speed? So if she started out at the increased speed, she'd be traveling 42 miles per hour, and she would do this for 5 hours, meaning that she would have covered 210 miles. We want to use the following scenario for the next set of problems. And it says, Bob nailed wooden board sections to a fence. He nailed 2/9 of a section in 1/10 of an hour. The first portion asks us to explain how to use the information in the problem to find two different unit rates. Remember that a unit rate is per one of something, so one would be our denominator. So we could find the amount of sections he nailed per hour, or we could find the amount of hours it would take to nail each section. We then want to find out what the two different unit rates are. If we looked at the first, which is sections per hour, we can figure out 2/9 of a section in 1/10 of an hour. So to find the unit rate, you would divide by 1/10. 2/9 divided by 1/10. Because anything divided by itself would give us 1. And 2/9 divided by 1/10 is 2 2/9. For our second unit rate, we would say that it takes 1/10 of an hour to nail 2/9 of a section. So in this case, we would divide by 2/9 to make our denominator 1. And 1/10 divided by 2/9 gives us 9/20. So this would be 9/20 of an hour per section. The next bullet there says, suppose each section had an average of 20 boards on it. On average, how many boards did Bob nail per minute? So we want to figure out the boards per minute, which correlates to the sections per hour. Because our boards per minute will correlate with sections per hour, we can fill in the information below. We can fill in our unit rate, which is 2 2/9 sections per hour. And if we wanted to know how many boards that would cover, then we would take our 2 2/9 and multiply it by 20 to get that is the same as 44 4/9 boards. And we know that 1 hour contains 60 minutes, so that's where our 60 came from here. Now we have a ratio set up with boards and minutes. If we wanted to figure out the number of boards per 1 minute, we would now divide by 60. And 44 4/9 divided by 60 will give us 0.740 repeating. And that is the same thing as 20/27. The next question says, when determining the number of boards Bob nailed per minute, would it be easier to use the number of hours it took him per section or the number of sections he nailed per hour, and explain your reasoning? This really is a preference question, but there is math reasoning behind why you should choose one answer over the other. And if we're looking for our unit rate to have denominator of time, then we should use our sections per hour because that already has denominator as time. Next, we want to know what is negative 2.7x plus 4.1 minus 2.3x plus 10.6. In order to go about this, we need to distribute our negative because we are subtracting the 2.3x and we are also subtracting the 10.6. So this is negative 2.7x plus 4.1 minus 2.3x minus 10.6. Now if we combine like terms, negative 2.7x and negative 2.3x are like terms, and together they give us negative 5x. And positive 4.1 and negative 10.6 are like terms, and together they give us negative 6.5. So our answer here would be B, because it's a negative 5x and a negative 6.5. The way that you can verify your answer is correct is to take your original problem and your answer choice and pick a value for x to substitute, and then simplify using your calculator to verify that they give you the same number. Our next question asks us, what is the value of negative 1/2 plus 2/5 times 3 minus 1/4 minus 1/6? To go about solving this, you would first figure out what 3 minus 1/4 is, and that is 2 3/4. We then would take care of our multiplication, which is 2/5 times 2 3/4, which gives us 1 1/10. We now would do negative 1/2 plus 1 1/10 minus 1/6, which gives us 13/30. You now have the ability to use a calculator, so at this point I would recommend putting this in your calculator for time management purposes. The next question says, what is the result of adding 5.4a plus 7.1 and negative 1.2a minus 6.3? So we want to add those two expressions together. So 5.4a plus 7.1 plus negative 1.2a minus 6.3. So that means that you are adding a negative 1.2a, which is the same thing as subtracting 1.2a, and you are adding a negative 6.3, which is the same thing as subtracting 6.3, and you are doing that to the original, which was 5.4a plus 7.1. Now we're combining like terms. 5.4a and negative 1.2a will give us 4.2a, and positive 7.1 and negative 6.3 will give us a positive 0.8 or 8/10. So our answer here would be 4.2a plus 8/10, which is C. Next, a store is having a 30% off sale. Will says that he can find the sale price of an item that has a regular price of P by evaluating the expression 70% of P. Joanne says that she can find the sale price for the same item by evaluating the expression P minus 70% of P, and we want to know who is correct. We can draw that tape diagram to represent this situation here, in which we would draw one rectangle, which represents the total price. Because we're looking at a discount, we would take our total, which is 100% of the price, and break it up into two pieces. One piece that represents our 30% discount, and one piece that represents the 70% paid. So we can create two equivalent expressions from this. We could say that we are going to pay 70% of the price, or we can say that we are going to take the price and take off 30% of the price. 70% of the price is what Will came up with, but Joanne said 70% of the price where she should have said 30% of the price. So only Will is correct in this situation. Next we have a painter mixes 2 parts red paint and 9 parts white paint to make light pink paint. We want to know which expression can the painter use to calculate the amount of white paint, W, that is needed to mix with a given amount of red paint, R. The best way to go about this problem is to take the information that you're given, the fact that we are looking to have 2 parts red and 9 parts white, and substitute it into the variables to see if we have an equivalent expression. So in A, that would be 9 parts white equal to 2/9 part red, which was 2. That would give us 9 is equal to 4/9. And that's not a true statement, so A would not be correct. In B, we would have 9 parts white is equal to 9/2 parts red, which again is 2, so 2/1. And when you multiply these, you would have 9 is equal to 9, and that is a true statement. So this equation accurately represents this situation. If you wanted to look at C, then we would have 9 parts white is equal to 2/9 plus 2 parts red. In order to add those, we would have to have a common denominator of 9. So we would multiply the numerator and the denominator by 9, giving us 18/9 instead of 2. And that would give us 9 is equal to 20/9, and that's not correct as well. So this is how you could go about continuing to verify that A, C, and D are incorrect. So for D, we would say 9 is equal to 9/2 minus the red, which is 2. We would need a denominator of 2 here, so that would be 4/2. And that would be 9 is equal to 5/2. And again, that is not correct. So B is the answer. Zy purchased 5 equally priced DVDs online. He paid $90, which included shipping. Which statements are true? Mark all that apply. Based on the information that we were given, Zy paid $90 total. And to get that $90, he bought 5 DVDs and he paid shipping. So we can fill in the information of A, B, C, and D to figure out which of these will actually equal 90. For A, if the shipping fee was $10, so we'll be adding 10, and we paid $16 per DVD, then 5 times 16 is 80, and 80 plus 10 is 90. So this does equal our correct total. So A is correct. For B, the shipping fee was $18 and each DVD was $14.40. So 5 times $14.40. 5 times $14.40 gives us 72, and 72 plus 18 is $90. So this gives us the correct total. For C, our shipping fee was $12 and each DVD was $15.60. So 5 times $15.60 is $78, and $78 plus $12 gives us $90, so this does give us the total we're looking for. And in D, we have a shipping fee of $9.30. and each DVD costs $16.14. So 5 times 16.14 is $80.70, and we add our $9.30 shipping to get a total of $90. So this again gives us the total we're looking for. So in this case, all 4 answer choices are correct. For the next question, which expressions are equivalent to 20x plus 8, and mark all that apply. So we want to use the distributive property in all of the options. Negative 4 times negative 5x is 20x, and negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. That is what we're looking for. In B, 4 times 5x is 20x, and 4 times 2 is 8, so that again gives us what we're looking for. For C, 4x times 5 is 20x, and 4x times 2 is 8x. So this would give us 28x, which is not what we're looking for. In D, negative 4x times positive 5x will give us negative 20x squared. And negative 4x times negative 2 will give us positive 8x. And again, that is not what we're looking for because of the x squared and the fact that the 8 has an x with it as well. In E, negative 4 times negative 5x is positive 20x, and negative 4 times positive 2 is negative 8. We were looking for 20x plus 8, not 20x minus 8. And in F, 4 times negative 5x is negative 20x, and 4 times 2 is positive 8. Again, we were looking for positive 20x plus 8, not negative 20x. So the only options here are A and B. We want to use the following scenario for the next set of problems. It says Carla joined a video rental club. She paid an initiation fee of $9.25, and it cost 25 cents per video that she rented. We want to write an equation to show the total amount T that Carla paid to rent videos. Her total cost is going to come from how much she has to pay per video, which is 25 cents per video. But she had to pay some money to be able to rent those videos. She had to pay an initiation fee. So we have to add on our $9.25. So this equation could be used. Next, we want to know, while she was a member of the club, Carla paid a total of $23.25. So we want to use that information to figure out how many videos she rented. Well, in this case, that is our total, $23.25. And to get that total, she had paid 25 cents per video plus $9.25 as an initiation fee. Now this is just a two-step equation like we've solved in class. You would undo what is done to the variable, which is b. To make 925 disappear on the right side, you would subtract 925 from both sides, because that makes this equal 0 on the right. And 2325 minus $9.25 is $14. And that would be equal to whatever was left over on the right side. So now we need to know what 25 cents was multiplied by to get that 14. In order to figure that out, we would divide. We would divide by the 25 cents on both sides. Anything divided by itself is 1, meaning we would only have v left. And 14 divided by 0.25 is 56. So she rented 56 videos. And our final question says, suppose Carla had rented the same number of videos with the same initiation fee, but now the cost was instead 35 cents per video. We want to know what would be her total. So we're looking to figure out her total. She's now paying 35 cents per video, and she still rented 56 videos, and she still had an initiation fee of $9.25. So 35 cents times 56 videos is $19.60. And you add that to her $9.25 initiation fee to get a total of $28.85. Remember that you have access to a calculator now in class. Everything you do as far as expressions and equations goes can be checked. Use that tool wisely.